Hello, happy Friday, and welcome to Newsmax Daily for December 6, 2024, the 341st day of the year, 25 days to go, 19 days until Christmas, and 45 days until Inauguration Day.
May I wish for you and for the nation, now and always, as we continue to seek the light of liberty and love, kindness and compassion, dignity and decency.
President Biden at the lighting of the National Christmas Tree Ceremony in Washington last night. In the spirit of Christmas, today is St. Nicholas Day, honoring the good deeds and miracles of the patron saint of children, the needy, and of sailors. A celebratory day mainly by those of European descent that encourages acts of gift-giving and goodwill. St. Nicholas, as you may know, is often associated with the figure of Santa Claus, as in Old St. Nick. In the spirit of Washington, we've learned that President Biden is weighing preemptive pardons for officials that he fears may be targeted by the new Trump administration, including former Congresswoman Liz Cheney, General Mark Milley, and Dr. Fauci. You are going to hear a lot of talk about that today and tonight on Newsmax. President-elect Donald Trump, meanwhile, made several more cabinet picks Thursday, naming former PayPal executive David Sacks as White House Artificial Intelligence and Crypto Czar. Another new position, like Border Czar, and he named former Georgia Senator David Perdue as ambassador to China, saying on Truth Social that as a former CEO, Perdue brings valuable expertise to help build our relationship with China, end quote. The nomination of Pete Hegseth, meanwhile, as defense secretary and the allegations against him continued to dominate the news yesterday, as Hegseth continued to make the rounds on Capitol Hill. And I'll get to that in a moment. But Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy were also making the rounds on Capitol Hill. They'll be heading up the new Department of Government Efficiency, right? DOGE, DOGE. This is Carl Higbie.
You don't think these guys just say whatever they think you want to hear, then do whatever they want once they get? They absolutely do. Mike Johnson, perfect example. Okay, I want him to succeed, but he is a perfect example of why I don't think he will. He was one of the most vocal critics of the FISA courts, like 6 months before he became the speaker. Then one of the first things he did once he became speaker, reauthorize the FISA courts. This is what I'm talking about. And then they'll say, well, we have I have new information. I've matured on my opinion. Well, then share it with me. Oh, Carl, I can't. You wouldn't understand or blah, blah, blah. Well, then do what you said you were going to do that you got me to donate money to your campaign for. It's that simple. They try to make it complicated to confuse us, and then they have an excuse why the next time they need to raise money from us. And then they wonder why they have an 18% approval rating. Hey, never in my life have I seen a group of people that work so hard to accomplish nothing. That is why the DOGE needs to be totally independent of anyone who is on the government payroll. This should be simple. Day one, cut 75% of the government. Elon already has the list, or probably will have it complete by January 20th. Day two, single issue bills. Hit the House floor for that. Carry the vote live on every single network. Any Republican who votes no, Elon and whoever else wants to, myself included, primary immediately. I'll max out my donations to that. Day three, the same thing in the Senate, then send it right to Trump's desk. Day four, pink slips and eviction notices. Day five, sell the building so there's nowhere to come back to. And there'll be no turning back from that. Don't give me government must maintain function. You guys spend $2 trillion more than you take in. If you functioned, that would not be the case. While current employees of the federal government owe $1.5 billion in tax, you can't even police your own. Oh, Carl, the tax code is complicated, and that's why they're falling behind. No. Maybe the last 30 years, you guys should have thought about simplifying the tax code then, but you didn't. Maybe that bill should be on Trump's desk day one. I'll volunteer to help write it. It'll be one page. You guys just gave $1 billion to Africa, while American citizens in North Carolina are freezing to death 2 months after a hurricane hit them. The government is literally sitting on the perimeter in North Carolina with the good old boys are actually the ones out there building the roads. And the government that functions is trying to shut those roads down because they didn't get a permit. If that's function, I don't want the government to function. You guys pass laws, exempt yourself from most of them. Exempt yourself from the vaccine mandate, Obamacare, FOIA requests, countless other things that we have to live by. You don't function. We'll be fine with less of you, 75% less to be exact. This is the difference between D.C. and the rest of America, and why I don't want any government officials on the DOGE. Because almost every single congressman, every bureaucrat or whatever in D.C. feels that America functions to provide for the government. The intent of the DOGE is to run the government as if its intention is to provide service for America. That's what our Constitution intends. We have to start looking at the government as, what do these departments do to add value to the taxpayer, instead of justifying its own existence.
Carl Higbie, the host of Frontline, 5 o'clock Eastern on Newsmax, not pulling any punches as usual. More on the Department of Government Efficiency from National Report.
Pennsylvania Congressman Dan Meuser, which he joins us live now. Congressman, good to see you. Thanks for joining us on this. There's a lot of excitement about the Department of Government Efficiency and really cutting costs where they can. In this visit to Capitol Hill by Musk and Ramaswamy, what are you looking forward to today?
Well, Sean, Emma, great being with you, of course. You know, there's some really exciting plans in place. Number one is the growth opportunities and growth initiatives and policies that we're going to have for the United States economy. And as well, to balance a lot of that out, we have the DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency Plan, and with a lot of authority under Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. So today we're going to hear from them what they're, how they're going to take action, the participants, the areas of focus, and the list goes on. We've been having various meetings with our whip and with our speaker within committees on where we can cut, where we can reduce, where there's waste, abuse, and fraud. And frankly, Sean and Emma, it's endless. We just got to start at the low-lying fruit, which in some cases is contracting, certainly waste, abuse, and fraud. We have over 7,000 buildings that are completely unoccupied. And get this, prior to COVID, 3% of the federal workforce would not basically on a daily basis show up for work. You know what it is today? Over 90%. Federal workers don't come into work. Yeah. And that includes... So there's some things that need to be corrected.
Yeah, and you think of all the companies, obviously, that maybe had adopted that policy during COVID, but now people are back to the office. You would expect something similar for our federal government employees.
That's Newsmax's Emma Reckenberg with Pennsylvania Rep. Dan Meuser on National Report. Thousands of government buildings unoccupied and more than 90% of government employees working from home. Congressman Meuser referencing a report that came out yesterday from the first Department of Government Efficiency caucus meeting showing that only 6% of the tens of thousands of government employees actually work in their office on a daily basis. Lydia Serrani spoke with Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn, who also met with Elon and Vivek.
Ramaswamy and Elon Musk, they're on the Hill today promoting their cost-cutting efforts. How confident are you that they can get it done? We are talking about trillions of dollars here, ma'am?
Yes, indeed. I believe they will be successful. They're bringing so much attention to an issue the American people fully recognize. And you're right, Vivek was just on my podcast, Unmuted with Marsha. And we had a great discussion about this. And I have filed what is known as the DOGE Act. And the DOGE Act will freeze federal hiring and federal salaries until we can get these provisions in place to right-size the federal government. And this is something that needs to happen day one, so that on the way out, the Biden administration is not piling on a lot of salaries and new hires, and we are able to begin cutting into that base of the federal government to make certain that we're reducing the number of employees and the number of expense that is there. So everyone, all the Republicans in the U.S. Senate are working on this. I think everybody on Capitol Hill is. It's becoming a bipartisan issue. We're so pleased to see citizens and corporate executives and individuals that are concerned about the health of this country for future generations to step up and to submit their recommendations of where savings can be achieved.
Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee plugging her podcast, and she also told Lydia that she met with Pete Hegseth on Capitol Hill and fully supports him.
Talk to me about all these allegations against Pete Hegseth. You have a lot of his former coworkers saying that NBC News article is a lie, that no one reached out to them to talk about it. They've never heard any of these allegations. They never smelled alcohol on his breath. What do you make of these accusations against Hegseth and how they seem to be mounting? Can he survive? Does he make it even to confirmation at this point?
Pete Hegseth is going to make it to and through confirmation. And the reason is he is the secretary for the Department of Defense that the American people want to see. Certainly Tennesseans back Pete Hegseth as our next Secretary of Defense. And the reason they do is because they know Pete Hegseth will be there to protect the warfighter. He will focus on 21st century warfare. He will hold legacy systems to account, and he will make certain that the DOD is managing their resources so that we can achieve peace through strength.
Again, that's Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn. This whole story from NBC about him having a problem with alcohol and even drinking before or during his Fox News show got me thinking. And we talked about this yesterday. His co-hosts have completely debunked it, number one, right? But I remember when Hoda Cobb of the Today Show on NBC, Hoda, right? And I think it was Kathy Lee Gifford, had a show where they literally drank wine and got all giggly on their show every day. Or maybe it was just on Fridays. But you remember that? The drinking was like a focus of the show. On yesterday's Newsmax Daily, you heard Greg Kelly, who is also a combat veteran and former Fox News host, explain why he doesn't think Hegseth is the right pick. Now Greg is becoming a story. Here he is on American Agenda with Bob Brooks and Katrina Zish.
We turn now to Trump's embattled Secretary of Defense nominee Pete Hegseth, who's on Capitol Hill today. Hegseth defending himself against the mounting allegations possibly hindering his nomination. Joining us now to discuss is the host of Greg Kelly Reports, Greg Kelly.
Hey, guys.
Hey, lucky us. Great to see you.
How are you? What can I do for you? I understand that my name has been thrown around quite a bit because I have taken a public position against Pete Hegseth. I think he is the wrong man for the Pentagon. I think he should not be the defense secretary. So at one point, I supported Pete Hegseth when the name came down. I did not think it was ideal by any means, but Pete Hegseth had done something that I kind of liked. He actually called for the ouster of General C.Q. Brown, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who is a mutinous individual and deserves to be thrown out. Pete wouldn't have the power to do that, but that he said so publicly and seemed totally insensitive in a good way to identity politics. I thought, okay, I can get behind this. I'll overlook all the other stuff that I am aware of. And quite frankly, it wasn't all that intense, but it got a lot more intense last weekend. I've known Pete. I actually first met Pete, I think maybe in 2007, 2008, when I was on the Fox News channel. He would come and promote the Forever War. He would come as an Iraq War veteran and say what a great thing the Iraq War was and how we were there for all the right reasons. And yes, no weapons of mass destruction, but this war is going great. I disagreed with him. I disagreed with him strongly. I still disagree with him. But that's how Pete first made his name at Fox News, promoting the Iraq War. And I believe that he was doing it for political reasons, self-serving reasons. Pete, it was very apparent, and he talked about it, wanted to be a congressman, wanted to be a senator, wanted to be somebody important, okay? This is long before MAGA, long before any of that stuff. I told you, though, once the name came down, and I love President Trump, but he's not infallible. And from time to time, personnel mistakes will be made. And I am allowed to say what I think about these mistakes. So then the New York Times story comes out. We all know that the fake news is the fake news, right? So I won't rely on the fake news. I'll rely on what his own attorney has said, that Pete Hegseth signed a non-disclosure agreement and paid money to a woman who accuses him of sexual assault. I was once accused of sexual assault, falsely. I would never in a billion years pay that person a dime. Pete Hegseth, that doesn't sound like a fighter. That sounds like somebody who's blackmailable. And I'm not comfortable with that individual being the Secretary of Defense. A couple of other quick things, if you don't mind. Look, I'm a person. I am flawed. I am no saint.
Right.
I have dealt with temptation. I have sinned. And yes, like Pete, and I believe, I hope he's on a journey to get himself closer to God. I am still tempted and all kinds of things. It can be challenging being a human being. The adultery matter is a real matter. Maybe not in the real world where laws against adultery are considered quaint and silly and kind of passé. In the military, it's different. In the military, you might go to sea for 6 months, 9 months, maybe go to the desert for a year. And a lot of folks in the military leave behind somebody who is dear to them, perhaps a wife.
Yeah. Greg, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
If you don't mind, I do have to finish this thought. And if that wife engages with another service member, it can have a real impact on the good order, morale, discipline of the military and make us less effective. That's a real thing, and it happens. It's happening now. It happens. It's human nature. It does happen. That must be against the law always in the military. Pete, it's well known, has violated that. I have had issues. We've all had issues. He should not be the Secretary of Defense with this record. What we will see are service members pointing to that individual. Look at all of the things that he has been through. I should not be held accountable for any of this stuff. And that is a major, major problem. Some of the reasons why I oppose Pete Hegseth, I've just shared with you.
Yeah.
Greg Kelly, host of Greg Kelly Reports on American Agenda. You may have heard some of this on yesterday's Newsmax Daily from Greg's own show, and I said now Greg is becoming a story, right?
Look, I'm hearing from some of my friends in MAGA, and they're disappointed in me, and they think I shouldn't be saying these things. But MAGA, I hope, is a big umbrella organization or loosely defined organization. We've been through a lot with President Trump, right? And we've been there through him, certainly on my show, Greg Kelly Reports. I was there when he came down the escalator on June 16, 2015. I knew he could win. I said it publicly. A lot has happened since. President Trump has been in trouble, right? Been there every step of the way. But here's something I'd like to know. If I were a senator on the confirmation panel, the Armed Services Committee, Pete Hegseth, you're a MAGA hero, I hear. Tell me about all the stories you did about January 6th. Tell me about all the stories or all the interviews you conducted with people held in prison right now who didn't break anything, who didn't hurt anybody, that are in prison. Have you profiled them? Have you done stories on them? How about Ashley Babbitt? Have you followed up on the Ashley Babbitt situation? By the way, what do you think of what happened to Tucker Carlson? Tucker Carlson masterfully illustrated that the Capitol Hill police may have been involved in the January 6th plot to tarnish MAGA. These are questions that are not pursued by Fox that I pursue on my show every day. I quite frankly feel that I don't have to prove my MAGA bona fides to anybody.
Think you do, Greg.
But if MAGA is you support this nominee or else, you know what? I don't think that sounds like MAGA. I think Make America Great Again is not like China, where everybody has to have the same point of view, get in line or else. No, that's not MAGA. There are real serious concerns.
Greg Kelly, host of Greg Kelly Reports, 9 o'clock Eastern, 9 p.m. Eastern on Newsmax. As for January 6th, former Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio, one of the many wrongly convicted in connection with the January 6, 2021 riot at the U.S. Capitol. I'm sure Greg has featured Enrique on his show before. He was sentenced to 22 years in prison. 22 years. His mother spoke with National Report yesterday.
One of those defendants is former Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio. He was not at the Capitol that day, but prosecutors say he led, quote, an assault from afar. Some alleged members of the Proud Boys were on the front lines of the skirmishes with police. But Enrique, who's a former FBI informant and was not even in Washington, D.C. on January 6th, was accused of organizing what the DOJ called an attempt to overthrow the government. He was sentenced to a record 22 years in prison, despite pleading guilty and pleading for leniency, saying, quote, I'm not a political zealot. Inflicting harm or changing the results of the election was not my goal. Please show me mercy. I ask that you not take my 40s from me.
And even when he was arrested more than 2 years ago, here's the footage, authorities showing up at his home in body armor in the middle of the night with long guns drawn and cuffed him while he was half naked. This while rape and murder suspects routinely released with no bail. With that, Zuni Tarrio, that is Enrique Tarrio's mother, is joining us now, hoping President-elect Trump could pardon her son, maybe others as well. Zuni, thank you so much for taking the time for the viewers today, and again, speaking out specifically about your son. 22 years that he's received. There were negotiations to lower that sentence. Is it still at 22 years? And have you heard? Are you able to communicate with your son? Can you tell me how he's doing today?
Good morning, Sean, Emma, for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. Yes, I do communicate with Enrique whenever he's at a jail that has good communication. Right now, he's been in transit. Enrique, a lot of people don't know, but he's been at 35 different prisons since he was taken on March 8th of 2022. And that sentencing is still at 22 years. And he was not there, as you all know. He was in Maryland. He was away from there. The trial lasted 5 difficult months for the families, and we're hoping that we're taking avenues as the appeal process goes forward. We're hoping that elected President Trump, understands the situation in all these families and all the damage that has been done to these families throughout these years.
Zuni, that seems like a lot of movement for a prisoner here. Is there any explanation as to why he's been transferred so many times?
Except for the fact that he's been paraded all that time, there is no valid explanation for that. He goes from prison to prison, and now since before November 5th, he was transferred at least 5 times, and sometimes to the same state. So that seems like a really ridiculous move, but all of this is so surreal sometimes that we don't even know. But we're hoping that things are going to get better in 2025 for all of those men that are still incarcerated with no bond and have some of them don't even know their children. Most of them are American citizens that have been in the armed forces. It's been terrible. They've hurt not only these American patriots, but they've hurt a lot of families with giving this power to the DOJ.
That's Zuni Tarrio, the mother of former Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio, who's serving a 22-year sentence in connection to January 6th, and again, wasn't in D.C. on January 6th. Here's what she said in closing.
I think enough is enough, and I think if President Biden is able to pardon his son Hunter, he should be able to pardon my son that wasn't even there. We don't know what could have happened if he was. Maybe things would have been different. But there was thousands of people there that day, not only Proud Boys.
The Tarrio family and many others are now anxiously awaiting January 20th, Inauguration Day, and to see if President Trump will pardon those sentenced for their role or lack of a role in the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol. Trump has indicated that that is a likely possibility. On Wall Street, the final trading session of the week opened well into the green this morning after the monthly jobs report was much better than expected, showing 227,000 jobs added to the payrolls in November. Economists were expecting 214,000 jobs. And get ready, Chipotle says it's going to be raising prices due to the high cost of avocados and dairy. Not long ago, if you're a Chipotle fan, you may remember they were advertising larger portion sizes after being hit by a wave of complaints and unhappy customers on social media. Now they say they would rather raise prices than cut back on portion sizes. And if you're driving a Dodge Ram pickup truck, Stellantis is recalling more than 300,000 Ram pickup trucks due to a potential braking issue. That is definitely not good. You want to check with your dealer as soon as possible. And be sure to keep up with all of the news and breaking developments today and throughout the weekend on Newsmax, N2, and Newsmax.com, beginning each and every day with Wake Up America, including the Wake Up America Weekend Edition on Saturday and Sunday. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you, as always, for listening to the Newsmax Daily. Enjoy the rest of your day. On the calendar of made-up holidays, today is National Miners Day and National Bartenders Day. And if you work in the mines, chances are later today you may be visiting your favorite bartender. Actually, if you work anywhere, chances are you may be visiting your favorite bartender later today. Drink responsibly. Do not drink and drive. Have a fantastic weekend. Let's go Miami and keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Relentlessly slowing the spread of the stupid every day. It's the Rob Carson Show.
Hey, it's Rob Carson. My podcast is about leading-edge commentary and opinion, great guests, and the biggest political comedy in the country. My satire was featured on the Rush Limbaugh program for over a decade, and now it's fresh and new and on my podcast. It's not just another desk-pounding conservative tirade. It's about entertaining, informing, and motivating. Patriotism and hope. You don't need more stress in your life. You need to feel good and, dare I say, even laugh. Subscribe and download at your favorite podcast platform or go to newsmax.com/listen.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax.